Hey everyone, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today into something that you specifically requested.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wills.
Okay.
The power of a will. You actually sent in a webinar script all about securing your legacy
Cool.
and going through it. Even I learned a thing or two.
Mm.
So we're going to be exploring things like how a will gives you control over your assets, how it helps protect your children's future,
Yeah.
and how it can even minimize legal costs for your family. Plus, we'll uncover some aspects you might not have even considered.
Okay. Sounds good.
It's pretty amazing how much a single document can impact the future.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's not just about legalities either. It's about making sure that your wishes are respected
Right.
and your loved ones are cared for even when you're no longer around.
Yeah, exactly. The webinar script put it this way. A will is like a roadmap you leave behind
Okay.
to sort of guide how your possessions should be handled.
Mm.
It's almost like your voice is speaking from beyond.
Oh, wow.
That's actually how the Kenyan Succession Act puts it,
Interesting.
which I thought was so fascinating.
Yeah, that is a powerful way to think about it.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that a will isn't just about, like, stuff. It's about values, intentions, and making sure that those are carried forward.
Yeah.
And speaking of carrying things forward, the source material highlights that it's important to understand the different types of wills that are recognized in Kenya.
Oh, that's right. It goes into oral wills and written wills.
Yeah.
And the distinctions between those are really important.
Yeah.
An oral will is fascinating,
Okay.
where you're expressing your wishes verbally in front of witnesses,
Right.
but it only holds legal weight for 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. And there are some very specific requirements for an oral will to be valid.
Oh, okay.
It has to be made with 2 adult witnesses present,
Gotcha.
and it has to be recorded in writing within those 3 months.
Wow.
Imagine your final wishes entrusted to the memories of those present.
Yeah.
It really underscores how serious the situation is.
Absolutely. It makes you realize how much responsibility those witnesses carry.
Okay.
And then there's the more familiar written will.
Yeah.
That's the kind most people think of, with all the details carefully documented and signed and witnessed.
Yes, and for a written will to be considered valid in Kenya, it needs to be in writing, signed by you,
Right.
and witnessed by 2 adults who are not beneficiaries.
Oh, okay.
So it's all about making sure that your intentions are clear and undeniable.
So we've kind of covered the different types of wills, but one thing that really hit home for me in the webinar script was the why.
Oh, okay.
It went way beyond the legal stuff and got into these really compelling personal reasons for why having a will is important.
Interesting.
And honestly, some of them were pretty eye-opening.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The peace of mind alone is huge. Just knowing that you've laid out your wishes, you've made your intentions clear,
Yeah.
that's invaluable. But it goes deeper than that.
Right.
For example, imagine you have a treasured family heirloom, like let's say a piece of jewelry passed down for generations. Without a will, who knows where it could end up?
You're right. With a will, you could specifically give it to a chosen person.
Exactly.
Make sure it stayed in the family or went to somebody that would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Without that roadmap, it could get lost in the shuffle of settling the estate, potentially even sold to cover debts.
That's right. And that brings us to another important benefit that the webinar highlighted.
Okay.
Control over your assets.
Yeah.
It's about more than just who gets what.
Right.
It's about preventing potential family disputes and making sure your wishes are honored.
Yeah.
And it prevents unnecessary heartache during a really difficult time.
Yeah, it's like you're minimizing the potential for conflict,
Exactly.
especially when emotions are running high.
Right.
Having those clear instructions in place can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And talking about protecting loved ones, the webinar script really emphasized how important a will is for protecting your children's future.
That's one of the most powerful aspects of a will, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It allows you to choose a guardian, someone that you really trust, to take care of your kids if something happened to you.
Right.
That way you're eliminating the uncertainty of court decisions
Yeah.
or potential intervention from social services.
Yeah.
It's a really profound sense of security for you and your children.
That really hit home for me. Knowing you've made those arrangements and chosen someone that shares your values,
Right.
that will love your children like their own, that's true peace of mind.
Yeah.
It takes away so much anxiety about the what-ifs in life.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a gift you give to yourself and your kids.
And that sense of security goes beyond just guardianship.
Right.
The webinar script talked about practical benefits of having a will, too.
Uh-huh.
Things that might not be immediately obvious, but have a huge impact on your loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
One that really stuck out to me was how a will can actually speed up the legal process
Oh,
of
wow.
settling your estate. I hadn't really thought about that before.
Yeah, it's all about clarity and efficiency. Your will's like a clear guide for everyone involved.
Right.
It minimizes delays and confusion.
Yeah.
Without one, the courts have to step in and try to figure out how your assets should be divided,
Oh, gosh.
which can be so time-consuming and stressful for your family, especially while they're grieving.
Right. The last thing anyone needs during a time of loss is to be bogged down in legal stuff.
Exactly. And speaking of things that add stress, the webinar talked about how a will can help minimize legal fees, too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Those lengthy court battles and legal disputes can really drain resources,
Mm-hmm.
and it just adds financial strain on top of the emotional turmoil.
Right.
A well-structured will can help prevent those costs
Yeah.
and save your family from a potential financial burden.
It's like you're taking care of them even after you're gone.
Exactly.
And another point the webinar brought up that really surprised me was this idea of preventing unintended beneficiaries.
Right.
I always assumed that without a will, everything just automatically goes to your closest relatives.
Right.
But that's not always the case.
That's a common misconception.
Really?
Without a will, the laws of intestate succession in Kenya are going to determine how your assets are distributed.
Huh.
And it might not line up with what you want.
Wow.
So people you may not have intended to inherit could end up with some of your assets.
That's a real eye-opener.
Yeah.
It really highlights why it's important to have a will so your possessions go to the people you want them to.
Exactly. The webinar actually gave this example.
Okay.
Imagine you have a second cousin you haven't talked to in years.
Right.
Suddenly they're entitled to a share of your estate.
Wow. Yeah. A will lets you specifically say who you want to be your beneficiaries.
Yes. It leaves no room for ambiguity or unexpected outcomes.
Okay.
Remember, life is always changing.
Uh-huh.
Marriages, divorces, new children.
Mm-hmm.
All these events can really impact your wishes.
Right.
So the webinar really emphasizes how important it is to keep your will updated to reflect those changes in your life.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Your will should change as your life changes
Exactly.
and accurately reflect your circumstances and intentions.
Yes. But it's not just about who gets what.
All right.
The webinar also mentions other important things like managing debt.
Oh, yeah. That's something people don't always think about.
It's something that's often overlooked.
Yeah.
Your will can actually say how to deal with any outstanding debts you might have,
Okay.
like mortgages, loans,
Yeah.
even credit card balances.
So your loved ones aren't stuck with those.
Exactly. Make sure they aren't burdened with those financial responsibilities
Wow.
during an already difficult time.
It's like a final act of taking care of them.
Yeah. And on a similar note, the webinar brings up charitable contributions.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's a powerful way to extend your impact beyond your lifetime.
Yeah.
You could actually say that a portion of your estate should be donated to a cause you believe in, like supporting organizations that are doing work that's meaningful to you.
Right.
It's about leaving a legacy that aligns with what matters to you.
I really like that. It's not just about material possessions. It's about making a difference.
Right.
Even after you're gone. It adds another level of meaning to a will.
I agree. And speaking of meaningful things, the webinar also talks about potential tax advantages that can come with a well-structured will.
Oh, yeah.
Proper estate planning can actually reduce the inheritance tax that's charged on your estate.
Okay.
So that means more of your assets go to your loved ones
Right.
or the people you've chosen as beneficiaries.
Instead of going to taxes.
Yes. It's a way to maximize the value of your legacy.
Wow. So we've covered a lot. Peace of mind, protecting your children,
Yeah.
controlling your assets, minimizing costs,
Mm.
even managing debt and potential tax benefits.
Right.
It's pretty amazing how much power a single document has. I'm having that aha moment, realizing that a will is so much more than just paperwork.
It is. It's about shaping the future even when you're no longer physically present. It's about taking ownership of your legacy, making sure your wishes are honored and your loved ones are taken care of.
Right.
It's a proactive step that really says a lot about your values and your foresight.
Yeah, it really makes you think about what matters, huh?
Yeah.
After going through this webinar script with you, I kind of want to go back and look at my own will, dust it off and make sure it reflects where I'm at in life right now.
I think that's a great takeaway from this deep dive.
Yeah.
life is unpredictable.
Yeah.
And having a will is like having a safety net,
Right.
to make sure your loved ones are protected and your legacy is preserved.
Yeah.
It's never too early to think about these things.
Absolutely. So for those of you listening, what resonated most with you? Was it that feeling of security, knowing your affairs are in order,
Right.
or the satisfaction of knowing your family's future is protected? Maybe it was being able to control where your assets go and making sure they benefit the people and causes that matter most to you.
It is amazing how a document like this can have such a big impact,
Yeah.
shaping the future, even after we're gone.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about what legacy means.
It really does. And it got me thinking, if you could make sure just one thing was passed down according to your wishes, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Would it be a family heirloom with all its stories and memories? Or maybe a life lesson you learned something you wish you knew sooner?
Yeah.
Or even a special memory, a moment you want to live on in the hearts of those you love?
That's a beautiful question to think about.
Right, it takes us beyond just the legal stuff and into what we really want to leave behind.
I agree.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you some ideas about your own legacy. So grab a notebook, write down some thoughts,
Yeah.
and start planning for the future. This is just the beginning.
That's right.